Thank you for joining me today. It's Brian Gubernick, and welcome to the No Days Off podcast, where we believe that every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. Let's get into today's topic. Today, I'm going to be talking about a possible mindset, the possible mindset as taught by a friend of mine, a guy named Colin O'Brady, who is one of the most amazing individuals I've met in the past year or two. We actually had Colin come out to a Metrics Masterminds event late last year. And I'll tell you, he blew me away. He blew our crowd away. And I think a lot about what Colin had shared that day, pretty much on a weekly basis. And one thing I think about is this possible mindset concept. First, who is Colin if you don't know Colin? He is an endurance athlete, a motivational speaker, a guy that was the first to cross Antarctica alone and unaided. I believe that was in 2018. He's a mountaineer. He set all sorts of records. The guy is a flat-out maniac. Not only that, he overcame a near-death experience, basically burned all over his body, couldn't walk, had to learn how to walk again before he became a triathlete, and a triathlon champion, and then just decided to go set some world records, hiking mountains and doing all sorts of crazy athletic things. I would say Colin has a mindset that's a little different than most, and he's a guy that we can learn from, and that's what I want to talk about today. Colin coined this term known as the possible mindset. And it was used to describe his approach to achieving goals. The possible mindset, according to Colin, is a way of thinking that really focuses on, obviously, what's possible rather than what's impossible. I've heard him say in some interviews, he says something to the effect of, if you tell yourself you don't have time and you can't achieve something, odds are that's not the only place in your life, the only bucket in your world where you're making excuses. So the possible mindset involves really believing in yourself, believing in your ability to overcome challenges, believing in your goals, no matter how daunting these things may seem. Colin breaks the possible mindset down into three key components. Number one, he talks around you must have clarity of purpose. You've got to have a clear vision as to where you want to go, why you want to go there, what it means to achieve this particular goal, why it's important to you. This makes me think about a different individual, a guy named Eric Thomas, E.T. Maybe you've heard this speech. I bet you have. You may not even know it's E.T. that says it. But he gives that, and I won't give you the whole speech, but you ought to look it up. He talks about you got to want it as much as you want to breathe. He tells a story about an individual walking out into the ocean and they're forced underwater and they fight and they fight and they fight to get out from underwater. Why? Because they want to breathe. And when they come up, the guru that had held this individual underwater essentially says, you were fighting for your breath. You got to want your goals that same way. You got to want to achieve as much as you want to breathe. And I think that's what Colin is kind of saying here. In order to have a possible mindset, you sure as hell got to have a clarity of your purpose. And if you're unclear, you don't have that clarity, then you're not nearly as motivated to achieve. Number two, you got to have belief in yourself. Believing starts with you, right? Like you could have the most supportive group around you, but if you don't believe that you have the ability to achieve your goals, like really believe, you're not going to overcome obstacles. You're not going to overcome setbacks. Colin talks about his trek across Antarctica, where he first starts walking, pulling this sled, and can barely even move. I mean, he wanted to tap out at that moment. But he fought and he fought and he fought, and he got it moving. And that movement created momentum. And it was just one step in front of the other. The third thing Colin says around this possible mindset is it's got to be action. You got to be action oriented. You got to take consistent steps, consistent actions towards your goal, and you got to be willing to adjust your approach if and when necessary. When Colin was on that Antarctica, that trek that I was talking about, he had so many setbacks. He had such bad weather. He had an individual he was competing with who was, one of the baddest dudes on the planet. And it was a race to see who could get there first. I mean, he could have gotten really down on himself and talked himself into not being able to not just make it across Antarctica alive, but also beat this individual. He had to overcome equipment failures. He had injuries. I think he had some frostbite. He had virtually everything. But despite these challenges, he kept a positive attitude. He refused to give up. He had to really dig within himself to find the strength to keep going. So the takeaway here, and what I really think Colin kind of anchors around, life's going to test us with all sorts of setbacks. We all know it. We all live it. We all have experienced it. The thing is, though, these setbacks, they're not permanent. We've got complete control over our choices. We don't have control over all the variables. We've talked before about controlling the controllables. One of the controllables is, in fact, you controlling how you react. You have control over your choices, and you can choose to keep moving forward one step at a time, or you could choose to tap out. You could choose to quit. If you're listening to the No Days Off movement or following the No Days Off movement, I'd like to think it's one step, one more step moving forward. We all have untapped potential. We've got a whole tank of untapped potential. And if we could just tap into that, we can truly achieve great things. As Colin would share, and I think as he wrapped up the conversation that he had with my Metrics Masterminds group, the biggest thing standing in our way is our own minds. So if we can conquer our minds, if we can believe in ourselves, if we can get super clear on our purpose, if we can be action-oriented and take action towards our goals and be willing to adjust the approach if we have to, we can really achieve a heck of a lot. So the focusing question for you today, where is your mindset right now a little weak? What is it that you think you want to accomplish, but you don't have a possible mindset at this very moment? Maybe it's in business, maybe it's in a relationship, maybe it's in health, maybe it's in one of your other buckets that we've talked about since we started this podcast. Where is it that you need this possible mindset, and how can you reset? How can you get clearer around your purpose? How can you further believe in yourself? Who could you bring around you? Who do you need to bring around you to motivate or hold you accountable or just give you, a pep talk? How can you be a bit more action-oriented? How can you just take one step per day and just chip away, get one more win? Small wins lead to big wins. That's what momentum's all about. Where do you need to start taking action? That's the focusing question for you today. That's all I have. The No Days Off podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. So let's get after it.